The editor of Game Informer kind of let slip a couple of days ago that there is a new Zelda in the works, which is not a huge surprise to anybody. I don't think I'm surprised. I don't think you're surprised. I don't think anybody is surprised by the fact that Nintendo is working on a new Zelda game. But what was surprising is the fact that this new Zelda game was going to be unveiled relatively soon, which means it's further along than we thought. Now, at the time, I thought about, well, what are the options here? What is it that Nintendo can be showing off to get us excited for a new Zelda game? Well, I said at the time there were three options. The first option would be basically reuse the Breath of the Wild engine to make a new place for Link to go to and explore in that way. That would not take nearly as long as completing full development on a brand new Zelda where you have to lay down the tracks while the train's coming down the tracks at you, which is what most of the time is how they build a Zelda game, because they always build it from the ground up. Now, the one time that they've done this in the past was with Majora's Mask. Basically, they looked at the success of Ocarina of Time, what some people say is the greatest Zelda of all time, and they used that engine to make Majora's Mask, which turned out to be a really smart experiment. The second option that I said was available was a multiplayer Zelda, kind of like Four Sword Adventures or Triforce Heroes. And then the third option that I said was more along the lines of a traditional top-down 2D Zelda, kind of like the one A Link to the Past or A Link Between Worlds, like that kind of art style. And I can't believe that the fourth option didn't even occur to me, because this is actually a pretty obvious thing to do, because Nintendo's done it before. What do you do when you need more time to work on your game? You bring back an old game. So what game are they bringing back? Well, I did say that maybe they would remake Link's Awakening, which a lot of people missed out on. It was on the Game Boy, myself included. I never played it. And a lot of people love that game who have played it. You could also remake some of the other Zelda games that were not super popular, like Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, more the portable stuff. Or you could remake a game that would really only work on the Switch. And that's because the Switch's JoyCons are basically very, very condensed and improved versions of what Nintendo tried to do with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck. And that would be Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword is a very divisive game, a game where a lot of people love it and a lot of people hate it in equal measure. They love it because it has some of the best dungeons in any Zelda game ever. And they hate it because this game came out in the heyday of what many refer to as Nintendo's waggle experiment, where everything was motion controls all the time. And say what you want about motion controls, but there were a lot of good things that came out of the motion control experiment. The gyroscopic aiming, for one, that is a godsend to people who like it, like me, and can safely be turned off for people who don't like that kind of thing. I don't think that we would ever have had a game like Splatoon without that waggle experiment. That being said, a lot of people hate waggle and they don't want to use motion controls. And I don't like to lump in gyroscopic aiming with motion controls, but I mean, that's essentially what they are. But when I talk about motion controls, I'm talking about moving your hands around like this, okay? That's waggle. Very subtly adjusting your wrist in order to get that perfect headshot in whatever game it is that you're playing, that is gyroscopic aiming. And we never would have had that aiming without the waggle, but man, oh man, I hate the waggle. I played Skyward Sword. I didn't finish it. And it was because of the motion controls that I didn't finish it. Not because I found them so frustrating that I quit, but I ended up, I went for a run with my daughter and I tripped and I broke my elbow. And then because I broke my elbow, I couldn't really play Skyward Sword anymore, because there was a lot of flailing your arms around. So by the time after all the physical therapy had been done, in order to get back the 80% of movement that I now have, that meant no more Zelda for me. And really, it had lost its luster by then. I didn't want to go back and relearn the game, starting from scratch. I certainly didn't want to start from scratch, like delete my save and start over, like I felt like I had to do because I hadn't played it in months and months. Now, if you bring that to the Switch, you might convince me to play. You might, because like I said before, the JoyCons are they're improved on the huge clunkiness that is the Wii U or the Wii remote, and the nunchuck. Like, those things are really clunky, poor design, really poor design. At the time, I was wowed, as were many, by the innovation that came along with them, but they're really terrible controllers, in my opinion. Whereas I feel like the Joy-Cons are fantastic controllers. I was talking about this on my community Discord this morning, and I said, I'm interested in this only if I don't have to do motion controls. But even saying that, motion controls in the era of the Switch are so different and improved upon than they were in the era of the Wii, that I feel like this might be the best way to play this game, because I don't think that there's a chance in hell that Nintendo will get rid of the motion controls for this game. This game was built around the motion controls. The thing that I didn't like about the motion controls was how inaccurate they were. You know, when I swing my Wii remote in a straightforward direction and it picks up that it's a diagonal or a horizontal slash, that is very frustrating to me. But I don't think that the I don't think that the Joy-Cons run into that same issue very much. I was kind of marveling at how accurate they were. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Let's Go lately, and what I noticed is that I had to, every once in a while, you have to interact with Pikachu in order to keep his like happiness levels up, because then he does like crazy things in battles. And there's no sensor bar, but the Joy-Con is very, very good at determining where it was that I was pointing. It worked very well, and I think that it would work. I think that it would work far superior to what we had with the Wii remote and the Wii Motion Plus. At least that's how I feel. Now, I could be wrong about that. I'm curious as to what you guys think. If this, and I didn't even, talk about burying the lead. The fourth option was kind of teased by Mr. Aonuma. Mr. Aonuma is the producer of Breath of the Wild, and he just recently got up on stage at a Zelda concert that was being held in Japan, and he said, "I know what you're thinking. Are we getting Skyward Sword for the Switch? Please wait for further information." Which is kind of a huge bombshell to drop. There's no way that he says something like that unless they've got a plan, and unless that plan is to unveil it very, very soon. Like, that's just, Nintendo is far too disciplined to do something like that. I can't believe I've gotten through 9 minutes of the video and I haven't even mentioned that yet. So, if this turns out to be true, first off, do you think that Nintendo will do this without motion controls, or give you the option to play it without motion controls? My vote is no, they won't, even though that's what I would want. Secondly, are you interested in picking up Skyward Sword for the Switch? Now, I know that some people will say, well, Skyward Sword is portable. That's the best thing ever. But guess what? It's a motion control game, so you can't really play it portably unless you're in desktop mode and swinging your arms around with the JoyCons. So I wouldn't really get this to have that game be portable. This is really more of a game that's for people who missed out on it the first time around, or who, like me, can't stand the thought of playing that game in its current texture resolution on a 1080p screen, because that was really gross looking. Like, I recorded some footage earlier and it looked bad. It looked real bad. So do you think we'll get a non-motion control version of the game? There's our first question. Second one, no matter what, are you interested in Skyward Sword on the Nintendo Switch? Let me know down below. If you haven't already hit subscribe, make sure that you do so. Click that bell so that you get notifications. And if you haven't checked out my podcast, head on over to runjumpstomp.com. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.